the west elevation of the approved plan, there's some light gray, was also meant to be metal paneling. Now it's a mixture of the cement, the rust-colored cement, cementitious fiberboard, and some more smooth stucco. So some changes to the materials proposed as well. I think the roofing is a significant one, changing out the roofing. So on the next slide, slide 5, a quick summary of changes to the elevations, the roofing, rust-colored walls, and the light gray colored walls would be a proposed change. And then in the site plan on the 6th slide, on the left is the approved plan. No, that's the wrong site plan because we're talking about 420. So you'll want to go down to the 9th slide to show the two side by side. So approved plan on the top, showing all the different garages, and the site plan changing a bit. The buildings are a little bit smaller, so the garages go away. For within that site plan. One thing of staff's concern, going to the 9th slide, there's a table showing some changes. In the original plan, there were 61 parking spaces. In the new plan, there are now 50 parking spaces. So significant reduction, but we should remember that there's only 44 spaces required by code. So even though it does go down quite a bit by 9 spaces, they're still within the municipal code requirement. Open space is a concern that staff has. Originally proposed, there would have been 160 square foot patios. There's a slightly complicated math that gets you down to the total with the shared shared open space. So the proposed now is shy of open space area. The applicant points out in their project narrative that there is a lot of open space at the back of the property that could be used potentially for shared open space, but it's not sort of a formal open space setting. So the DRC will want to consider whether or not that's sufficient open space being provided for this site. And then there's some summary of the retaining wall. Warren Hamrick certainly pointed out that the retaining walls are going to come down. I've looked at the preliminary topos, and it does seem that the finished floor you'll still be sunk down, so that third story is still hidden behind the elevation, but it's no longer a retaining wall that's hiding it. And then actually I zoomed in on the 12th slide to show those elevations, the sections that show the elevation differences. They might be a little easier to see here instead of trying to zoom in on Warren Hamrick's presentation. So I think that was all. Yeah, that was the last slide I had for 420, Kristen.
Okay.
Katie, this is Mark. A general question. It seems a little bit defying logic that if you have a project that has less building footprints, no garages, that open space has dropped. Help me understand why the open space isn't at least comparable to what it was initially.
You bet. So if you want to go to the 3rd slide, it's the floor plans. It shows you the patios. So in the approved plan, the patios were there. I don't know the exact. I show 14 foot 5 inches by 10 feet. There was actually a little bit more because it cuts into there where the storage space is. So you ended up with about 160 square feet of patio. In the proposed design, you have 125 square foot patios. Those are 8 feet deep instead of 10 feet and a little bit less wide overall. So it's a smaller patio. The way we calculate open space for multifamily projects, you have to provide 375 square feet of open space per apartment. And you can do a mix of private open space and shared open space. Private open space is valued at 150% of any shared space. So when you reduce a patio, it really reduces the overall amount of open space because the private space is given more value. If you look at slide number 11, the open space, there's a breakdown of open space. So in the proposed 125 square feet for the patios, the private patios, whereas before you had 160 square feet. And then the shared open space is also reduced a bit in size by about 200 square feet. But the big decrease there in the total square footage really does come from the fact that those patios were reduced, and they're just worth more in the required calculation that the municipal code has for open space.
Okay. So what you're really saying
is... This is Warren Hamrick. Maybe I can clarify something here too.
Right.
If you look at the site plan of the proposed, we have, and it notes on this drawing that we have public open space or shared open space, 3,051 square feet. We were shy. If you look down in the conceptual tree massing at the very south end of the site, we were shy 700 square feet of public open space or shared open space. What the owner would like to do is create that landscape massing down by the riparian area as kind of a dog park or a dog walking area. And so we thought, well, that's a good space for a public open space. And so we put that 700, even though there's way more than 700 square feet down there, we would dedicate 700 square feet of it to a dog park or a dog walking area. And there's other places on the property that we could pick up if we needed to. For instance, around the mailbox, we could landscape that, create more benches out there, and make that more of a shared open space. So there's lots of things that we can do. So this was just our best take on it right now.
And I personally find it a convincing argument to allow that open space down the hill to be allowed as open space. I know if I lived in this complex, my children would be down there playing. But whether or not, it's not it's not a tot lot. It's not a formally formal outdoor area. And so just wanted to make sure that was a change that the DRC was comfortable with.
This is Ty. I guess it was kind of fast. I didn't catch it. So there's not going to be covered parking. It's just open parking. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's correct.
So the development plan originally showed quite a bit of all the parking spaces would be covered either in a two-car garage or under a solar carport. There is no code requirement that the parking be covered, but the applicant had originally shown it as covered parking.
Sure.
I will say that the owner is in talks with a solar company to come in and maybe not cover all the spaces, but to cover some of the spaces. So maybe one space out of for each unit would be covered with a solar carport, but that'll be a separate application.
Katie, this is Mark. I've got a couple of quick questions. Your slide number 4, which shows elevations and materials, and it may be just you commented you weren't sure that these views lined up. But if I look at the approved and the proposed, starting with on the left side, the east elevation, the approved has a lot more glazing. Has there been a change in the windows, quantity, placement, sizes, and so forth in these buildings?
So, Warren, you should comment on this. These I took from the approved elevations for the 845 Creston Road, and then the proposed. I think what's going on here is that they're not, like if you look at the west elevation for proposed, it actually matches up better with the east elevation approved, but the stairs are on the wrong side. So I think that they maybe weren't quite fine-tuned and weren't, anyway, Warren Hamrick, please comment if you can.
Yeah, I will say that there is a little less glazing on this proposed. Yes, that's true. We lost, I think it was about 70 square feet out of the unit. We cut 6 inches here and 6 inches over there and got it down. And actually, I think it's a more efficient unit. I like it better. And yes, to answer your question, there is a little bit less fenestration on the buildings than we originally proposed.
Okay. And my other question is, when you were describing the changes in circulation and sidewalk, you mentioned the sidewalk that served the mailboxes was going to be omitted. And tell me, I'm not sure where that is on the site plan, where the mailbox location is, but tell me how somebody that lives in unit E or H gets to their mailbox on a daily basis.
They drive in, and there's a mail parking only right next to the mailbox. So they drive in, they park their car there, they pick up their mail, get back in their car, and drive back to their space closest to their unit. Now you can see the mailbox. The mailbox is right next to Unit A. If you can zoom in on that area.
Yeah, there's a pull out there. So
that's right.
I don't operate that way personally. I always walk to my mailbox, which is a couple blocks away. So if I wanted to walk, do I only have the choice of walking through all the drive aisles in the circulation?
You walk through the playground equipment and the tot lot, and then walk in that way. Yeah.
All right. So I've got an alternative to take the circulation through the central part of the development to get over to the mailbox.
That's correct. That's correct. Okay. And those dotted walkways are intended to show path of travel because the rear units have to be accessible. And so we wanted to get a path of travel that went from the street clear back to those units, and that's what those are.
Okay. How wide is that path?
5 feet minimum.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is Ty. I know this is a weird question. I'm looking over the plan here, and maybe I missed it because you guys have seen this before. So if I'm, let's say I'm in Unit C and I'm on the 3rd floor, and
nope, that's a 2-story unit.
Okay, 2nd floor. How's that?
Okay.
I'm just looking at the layout plan, just getting a sense. If I'm on any other floor but the 1st floor, and maybe even the 1st floor too, where am I storing my bike, my kids' bikes, those types of items? I know you've got a storage space there. Which where would that conceptually be considered in?
Well, there are bike racks shown right next to the stairs on Building C.
Okay, great. So
now it's not. Yeah, right.
Is that what?
Now there is not a bike rack. I don't believe for every unit. I don't think there is because we were only required to have so many bike racks, and we put those where we thought they would most logically be or should be. But in addition to that, you've got the storage room off the deck.
So Ty, in the municipal code in the multifamily zones, each apartment is required to provide 250 cubic feet of interior storage, sort of above and beyond normal closets. The storage closets are being reduced by about 100 cubic feet, but they're still, I think, if I remember, 430 square feet or cubic feet. So they actually still do exceed the minimum required for a multifamily project. And so that code requirement is intended to store things like bicycles and your Christmas decorations and things you would in a home often put in a garage.
Yeah, we're required to have 250 cubic feet, and we're putting in 400, almost 450. So we're almost twice the amount required.
So the answer to Ty's question, for somebody who's a serious biker and has a $5,000 bike sitting out there, they carry it up the stairs and put it in the storage or carry it through an elevator.
Yeah.
No elevators, but yeah, you're right.
So it's walk up only on the 3rd floor.
And I'm a biker too, so I understand that completely.
Well, it was more than that. I'm trying to take into concept. Growing up as a kid, I lived in an apartment for a short time. I can tell you, exterior clutter tends to take place in that type of environment. So trying to provide as much out of the way for them to store things and put things is obviously the most ideal thing to do. And so that's why I was asking if they had some bike racks on site. And I couldn't see it until I really zoomed in. So that's why I was asking where you might have had those.
Yeah, good. There's also one over by Building B too. And I think there's some others too.
So this is Darren, and Katie might be able to provide a little more information, but we had a lady who lived adjacent to this project to the east who had concern over some of the retaining walls, the garages, how much landscaping, those kind of things. And Warren, with this design, how has this addressed some of the concerns that were raised at the Planning Commission by the neighbors?
Well, she was concerned that there was a garage on the parking that faces the easterly property line. And she thought that it might block her view. And so I think that this is actually going to be a better design for her, because you can see we've got some trees there. We don't have a garage. And the trees, I think she was pretty happy when we told her that there were going to be shrubbery, or there was going to be shrubbery along the property line. And so we retained that in addition to the big trees that will make an attempt to shade those parking spaces. So I don't think she is going to have any problem with that.
Yeah, there was
we had a conversation with her after the meeting. Yeah, that's right. There was that garage right there, and I don't have those spaces identified, but right there.
Something like a 6-foot retaining wall. Now that retaining wall right there is just 2 feet tall, which, could, and then her house is, I think, at least 10 feet of elevation higher than that parking area. With the slope there. I'm not sure the exact difference, but this, another concern was the solar panels on top of those garages. She didn't want to look at those, and those, of course, won't be here now.
Yeah, and her house is probably 50, 60 feet away from the property line, too.
So to use that space to add it in for open space, what is the owner planning on doing, like putting a walking trail, like a DG-style walking trail, or how are they going to make that accessible?
I think he will. Yeah, I think that's probably the best course of action. We just need to figure out, where does it come from? Where do you access that trail? And I'm thinking it would be down to the west of Building E, maybe down there someplace. I'm not sure.
Down along the utility easement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is Joel. Hey, Warren, I have a question for you on where the garages used to be. There's the parking. You've got some sort of highlighted mask or a screen on the site plan with the contour lines going through it.
Okay, I don't think I'm looking at the same plan that you are. Maybe
I'm looking at the site plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right across from
the new one?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, right across from the playground equipment. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay, I'm with you. There were garages on nearly all of those parking spaces between the tot lot and building E, F, G, and H. That was almost the wall of garages. In addition, there was garages facing building D from that side.
Yeah, I'm aware, but I'm just not sure the slope seems, those are 1 foot or 2 foot contours?
Those are 1 foot contours.
So you have 6 feet of slope in 19 feet?
I'm not sure where you're looking, but
that would be
your word.
If you look at your site plan, Warren, the parking spaces where we were just talking next to Miss Sepulveda's house, there's a kind of a gray area, and those contour lines are pretty close together.
I'm with you now. Yeah, I'm with you now. Okay. So the question was, we have 6 feet and 19 feet. Yeah, that's probably why we're going to have a small retaining wall there.
So these are showing existing or future?
Existing.
Contours.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just seems a little steep for a parking space.
Oh, well, it's, that would be steep for a parking space.
Does like parking
like a 50% slope. Yeah.
There is a maximum slope in the municipal code for parking spaces. I want to say it's 5%, but anyway, when we get building permits, project plans in, we will, staff will check.
Yeah, and we will not exceed that 5%.
Okay,
Did the DRC want to discuss the material changes to the elevations at all? Are they comfortable with the changes, the change from metal roof to the comp shingle?
Well, I'm personally a little disappointed about changing the metal roof to the comp, but I think it's similar color.
Yeah, it'll be that dark charcoal color, yes.
And this is Mark. Truthfully, I'm personally disappointed in the entire project change because I think it's a substantially lesser project, and I understand why it's being done in the interest of dollars. But I think the loss of the enclosed parking and some of those things are very significant, but I don't think they are in conflict with finding that this is in substantial conformance because basically it meets the requirements. So but I do think it's a far less project than what we saw initially, both aesthetically and functionally.
I kind of feel like the loss of even just at least the covered parking would have been a little bit nicer too. But I mean, like you said, Mark, it's not necessarily not conforming to what is allowed use, I guess. But the roof doesn't bother me as much. Warren, are those patios look like they're going to be kind of not necessarily enclosed, but partially enclosed in the sense that you've got the bottom that's going to be non-open, right? It's going to be closed, the way that looks on the elevation.
Yes, that's true. You mean the lower floor?
All of the the patios, all of them, all the way up.
Yeah, all of the patios will be open. There will be a guard, but that guard will only go up to 42 inches.
So you're not going to have the bottom portion of that closed, like the way it looks in this. Is that correct?
You mean on the lower floor?
Just all of the floors. See how the bottom part of where, so the railing, there's two bars on the rail, and then the bottom is solid.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
they are going to be enclosed. Yeah,
be solid,
yeah.
looking, right?
They're going to be solid up to probably about 24 to 30 inches. And the reason for that is, as was pointed out earlier, this is where junk tends to accumulate in these projects. And if you have bicycles and things there, I want to try to hide some of that stuff, and yet I still want an open feeling. So,
no, I agree. Well, what's that material going to? What's it going to be? What's that solid material going to be?
I think we originally started out with steel, some sort of a steel siding that would be painted. But after looking at the numbers, it's going to be far more economical for us to use like a hardy board, a solid hardy board, and try to make it look like metal. I don't want to see a cheap material and see a bunch of seams. And so we're going to do it tastefully. And then with that color, I think it's going to really stand out.
So I think the one concern with the dark hardy is it's going to fade relatively quickly in Paso Robles. Mm-hmm. So is that a painted surface or is it the integral color hardy?
I had considered this as being a painted surface so that we could paint all the connectors. Yeah. And I understand that. I was just walking through a project yesterday that had a painted hardy, and it's taken about 15 years, but it's starting to look like it needs paint again. And with this dark red color, it might even be sooner than that. You're right. So
yeah, I mean, hardy takes paint really well. So
yeah, right. But color fades. Yeah.
Color
even if it were metal, it would still fade. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I echo Mark. This is Joel. I think I echo Mark's concern as well, but I think I think it's close enough for me personally.
And I agree.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with it. I don't see anything else there that
So this is Darren. This is Darren. So I just want to reiterate here. So it sounds like kind of what we're resolving to here is to hear the DRC members indicate if this project seems substantially compliant with the development plan that was approved by the Planning Commission. And if you guys could reiterate what your thoughts were on whether it's substantially compliant or not.
This is Joel. I believe, based on the parking and the requirements for parking, I think it is substantially compliant, in my view, as well as the buildings changes.
This is Mark. I agree.
This is Ty. Again, the only thing I would like to see is that they figure out where they're going to put that path to incorporate that other open space instead of us just saying it's going to be there. Maybe find a way to really make that, have the owner really put something there that says, hey, yeah, this is what we're going to do. Other than that, I think it's conforming.
I think that's something.
If it's all right with you, I think we can work with staff on that. Yes.
Yeah, we can include in the minutes that prior to issuance of a grading permit, that we get more information specifically on that path.
I think it could be a nice little area addition for really next to nothing, and it would really set off the back end of that really well for people if they want to, like you said, walk the dog right down there.
Okay, well, thank you on that item. So related to
just one more quick, if I could, Aaron. I'm sorry, Warren. I know this is if the dollars come in somewhere lower than you expected, maybe we could see that standing seam and those metal panels come back.
I would love to see that. So yeah, I can tell you that I will approach the owner on that, and we'll just see where the numbers come in.
Maybe do a couple of add-ons.
Yeah, right.
This is Ty. I would echo that. That would be, Joel. That would be really nice.
This is Mark. I agree as well.
That's it for me.
any other comments on this item?
Darren, a quick question. How does that last suggestion of Joel get incorporated into this overall approval? And I don't think the city has purview of a private developer's cost estimates. So, I mean, what's to say that that may or may not happen? Roofing change.
Well, I think that you're approving the change to the composition. I think the architect has heard the DRC and indicated that if possible, there is that option. But in terms of what the DRC is approving today and what could be approved and installed is the composition.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was of knowledge here, because there's no way the city can hold to that. It just was a stated desire. Okay.
If I may interject something here, I don't think we're going to plan on using the cheapest composition shingles that we can get. I want to use at least a presidential series, which is a heavier tab. And chances are most people driving by at 40 miles an hour are not even going to notice, whether it's comp shingles or metal. But for the sake of the integrity of the design, I want to at least use a heavy tab shingle.
And that's something we can include in the minutes for the meeting, is that the architectural comp used is the heavier Class A presidential type.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Alrighty, so
well.
similar to this item is what Katie had indicated is the same owner, same architect, Warren Hamrick, and similar type buildings on a different site just to the east down Creston Road. This was a 3-unit project that I think had a lot of the same similar changes to the types of materials and to the units, as well as the removal of garages. But Katie, if you could maybe just give us a quick rundown of that other site.
Yeah, you bet. There's actually 5 units on this site. There's a 2-story building and a 3-story building. In the PowerPoint presentation, there's a summary. Let's see, so similar materials changes as the 420 complex. So looking at slide number 6, this shows you the site plan approved on the left, proposed on the right. Again, the parking garages and covered parking structures go away. They have moved the open space, the shared open space, from being near Creston Road to up in the top right-hand corner, that northeast corner. There was a concern about noise from Creston Road, and so I'm guessing Warren can fill us in, but I'm guessing that is to at least partially address the noise issue that might have come up when they constructed the shared open space. So looking at slide 8, we go from 17 parking spaces to 16 parking spaces. Only 11 are required by the code. No garages or solar carports are being proposed. This project does comply with its open space requirement. Again, the private patios are reduced from 160 square feet down to 125, but the shared space gets a little bit bigger, 937 square feet, which does get you to the required 1,875 square feet. The retaining walls are reduced on this project as well, particularly along the rear property line. That wall was proposed to be as high as 11 feet or 11 and a half feet tall. Those walls would have been behind a garage. So now with the garages gone, we will see that entire retaining wall, but they are now proposed at 6 feet. Warren Hamrick, you don't give us a lot of detail. One of the concerns of the Design Review Committee and the Planning Commission with the previous approvals was that the 3-story building in this case is actually quite close to Creston Road and was going to be screened by retaining walls. And there's no details that there's any change to the proposed height of that wall. So maybe you could walk us through whether or not the ground floor of Building A will still be as sunk as it was previously proposed.
Yes, that if you look at Building A down to the southwest corner, that height of that wall is the same as it was before. And so it's going to be 6 feet. And as you come down to the southeast toward Creston Road, you get down to that first angle point. It's going to start stepping down from there. And that's when the view is going to be impeded by the shrubbery and the trees in that area. So so it'll be difficult to see that lower floor. So yes. Now, as you go up the west side of the building, by the time you get up to that top corner where it makes a 90-degree turn over toward the bridge, that is, I believe, smaller or lower retaining wall than we originally had. And so that, and then like you say, the retaining wall along the rear of the property being reduced from 11 feet down to 6 feet is a pretty substantial change, and I think it'll look better. Now, there was some concern about the view of the retaining wall, and although we didn't do a landscape plan, we plan to plant the front of that 6-foot retaining wall so that it's, to soften it.
So in the original civil plans, that southwest corner is actually 8 feet tall, and then it tapers down to not given a lot of spot elevations, but we're not seeing a lower wall there. I understand the wall along that western property line might get shorter, but a finding that the Planning Commission made to approve this 3-story building so close to Creston Road was that it was screened, and I think it would be a pretty substantial change to have this wall in particular reduced in height, the one that runs more or less parallel to Creston Road.
Yeah, I agree. And if it was 8 feet before, we'll make it 8 feet. That's okay. Not a problem.
So this is Joel. Hey, it looks like Building B's moved closer to Creston.
Building B did move slightly toward Creston Road. I don't forget how far, but I think it was only like 3 or 4 feet, as I recall. And that was to allow that tot lot to have more area in the back. But it is still within the setback area.
Yeah, I was double checking. I think it's, Darren, do you remember, is it 15 or 20 feet for the front setback?
I think it's 25.
Okay. Oh, yeah, it's an arterial. Yeah. 25.
Yeah, and we're at least 30, maybe 34.
Yeah, I'm not. Okay.
Let me see. Oh, yeah,
I think that dashed line shows 25.
The dash line does show 25, and we're probably 3 or 4 feet beyond that.
Katie, this is Mark. I guess, obviously, this is a bit of deja vu. And my comments would be similar, that I think in terms of the project, it's an unfortunate change regarding some of the loss of the garage parking and some of those kind of things. On the positive side, I had a problem with where the play area was shown before, and I think this is much better to get it away from the activity. And I think there are changes here that in an ideal world, not solely driven by cost, one wouldn't make. But I understand that cost side of this, and it feels like it's much like the last one, still in substantial conformance, even though elements of the project have changed.
Just, I'm sorry, this is Joel. Did Building A move closer to Preston?
I don't believe so. Let me.
It's looking. I know Building A may have changed in footprint, but it's looking quite a bit different than the approved and the proposed.
You know, it moved farther away from the westerly property line. And that was how we were able to get that retaining wall shortened. So there's a bigger slope or a longer slope from the property line to the wall.
It did move.
So in moving it away, yeah, it probably moved. It wouldn't be much. It wouldn't be more than a couple of feet.
I would kind of like to see these those changes dimensioned.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other front elevations?
Okay.
I don't know, you know, like street view?
Ty, let me send you right now. The original approvals had some perspectives from the street.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are they in the PDF, Warren? The ones that you sent out today? I don't think they were.
I don't think they were, no.
Yeah.
There's only one perspective front view, and it's at an angle, and it's the hand sketch at the top. And I think it has the garages in there. I can't tell from this angle.
Yeah, I suspect that's the original one, so showing the garages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I'll be sending will also be from that original proposal.
Thank you.
Katie,
That's what I'm looking at.
we were able to put the elevations up on YouTube.
Oh, great. So I'm sending a rendering that I did not include in my presentation today. It was in the original Planning Commission packet. Hopefully that will be helpful,
So perspective
especially
view
for
that's
Ty.
on YouTube. Yeah, go ahead. Thanks. This is Ty. So the perspective view that's on YouTube, Warren, this is showing it looks like covered parking in the distance there. I guess what I'm wondering is how much of that parking is visible from the street, or does the landscaping?
Yeah, I'm not looking. I don't have that picture that you're looking at. I'm not on YouTube anymore.
So that's
Is YouTube back up and running?
Perspective from the original Planning Commission hearing, so it does still show the carport in the background.
Okay.
It might make sense to add, let's see, let me look at the site plan.
What I'm thinking is that it would be a simple, again, I can't see, but it looks coming in, and maybe just the landscape plan would be enough to screen, since they're not garages any longer.
Yeah, where the parking faces the road, it might make sense to put a low wall or a row of bushes or something, so we don't look at those cars as we drive by.
Yeah, that's true. We could do that.
It's a little more visually appealing than just staring into. It also gives those people a little more privacy on there.
Yeah, that's right.
Rather than looking straight in. I can't. A little bit, I can't tell from the. So on this perspective one, does that have the retention basin at the front? The original one from the original?
Yes, they both do. Yeah.
Okay.
So I can tell you your question about the relocation of Building A. On the original approved plan, it was the corner of the building was 39 feet from the Creston Road property line, and in the new version, it's 35 feet. So it moved actually forward 4 feet, and then from the side property line, on the original plan, it was 27 feet, and now it's 29 feet. So it shifted 2 feet to the east, but it went down 4 feet closer to the street. But it's still the distance to the setback is 10 foot 6 inches.
Yeah, but I think we need to remember that the commission was concerned about the height, and the further away from Creston, I think the better. Now, we don't have the civil plans, but if that wall, we had talked about that wall being 8 feet, I think, Katie, if I'm not mistaken, if that wall remains 8 feet, does that potentially change the height of the wall and back, and maybe it could go further east or further west? If that might make sense.
Right. So the civil showed the retaining wall was 8 feet at that corner, at the southwest corner, and then I believe it does get lower as it moved east. You should remember that the municipal code does not allow 3-story buildings, and so the Planning Commission was granting special permission, and there was a lot of screening and trying to sync this building. So it is a very legitimate issue that is code related. Making sure that the appearance of this 3-story building is to your satisfaction.
I don't think it was ever the intention for that wall that wraps around the front to be 8 feet all the way around.
No, I agree.
The commission, if the commission thinks that it should, we can certainly do that, but there's a fine line between prison and residence.
These days, Warren, they're about the same. That's my there's my COVID-19 joke of the day.
Yeah.
And it was a good one.
You sell
it was good.
Are you a razor ribbon salesman?
No, I do have a serious question though, Katie. what we just talked about, and if you look back at the perspective that you just sent us, it's very richly illustrated with plant materials. And is landscaping and the landscape plan yet to be approved by staff for this? How does that enter into the approval process?
Right. So there was a landscape plan approved with what came to Planning Commission. Mr. Hamrick did not want to get into that level of detail, and so I did tell him that if the final landscape comes in and doesn't appear to staff to be as hardy or as lush as was originally proposed, that I did retain the right to bring it back to DRC if the landscaping wasn't up to snuff as it were.
Okay, I assume that to be the case, and I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is Ty. I'm glad you brought that up, Joel, because that's kind of where I was leading next. Because on this perspective view, you can't see the wall or how it's would look from the street view because you're coming at an angle that's looking northwest, and so it looks wonderful and it's beautiful landscaping there. But I kind of get concerned with one, that the parking visualization, and then two, the wall. What is that going to look like from the street? And as like Warren just said, you don't want it to look like a prison. You want it to make it look like homes. But 8 feet is 8 feet. That's substantial.
So the high side.
My intent. I'm sorry. My intent was to step that wall down as it comes to the end, and where the wall got lower, the landscaping would take over. I don't think people want to look at a wall as much as they want to look at trees and bushes. So that was our intent.
So, yeah, and I tend to agree. But the back side of that wall is 8 feet, and I think potentially it was 6 feet before. So with it being 8 feet now, maybe we could move that building further to the west.
Yes, that is entirely possible. I could shift it back to where it was, which means that retaining wall paralleling the property line then gets taller. I mean, that was the reason we shifted it over. So if that's what the commission decides needs to be done, we can do that.
Yeah, I personally am just a little bit concerned about building A, that 3-story mass, being, 5 feet closer to Creston when we were having such an issue with it being close to Creston during the meeting.
Okay.
I think it was a good point, Joel, because it was a big discussion point at the meeting.
And I wasn't at that meeting, so I'll defer this to Mark and Joel on that point of it. So, and you can, I guess my concern goes along kind of with that is, that visual appeal coming in. I mean, overall it looks nice, but it's going to be massive there, closer to the street. So I'll defer to you guys on that.
So Ty, I don't know if it makes you feel any better. The way that wall works in front of Building A, so the ground kind of comes up to the wall, and then the building is actually lower than the high side of the wall is closer to the road. So the building kind of sits in a hole that from the street you won't see that 8 feet of retaining wall. You'll see it from inside the building.
Okay, great. Yeah, that does help because I went by the property. I'm very familiar with it, but I just was having a hard time visualizing. So yeah. that definitely helps. Definitely helps.
Okay.
All right, I can't.
So I think question. This is Joel. I think I'd like to again see if we could move Building A further from Creston to get it closer to what was originally approved, and then ultimately, if we can do that, I would be fine with the project as proposed. The change.
So Joel, would you prefer that?
This is Warren and Joel. Yes, we can do that. It just means a little bit taller retaining wall along the property line. A little bit less light will get into the unit, but we can certainly do it.
But I think the wall was what it was before, and now it's. I mean, it hasn't changed significantly. So from what was approved.
So Joel, one idea of how to address this, do you want to set like a minimum setback so that staff can approve it, or would you rather just see the project again with some dimensions showing where it's going to fall?
I don't want to try to put a minimum dimension to it.
Yeah.
I don't have the engineering, and that would be hard. So I don't know if I need to see it again. I just would like to maximize or minimize the change from what was proposed or what was approved to what is proposed on the distance to Crescent.
Okay.
We will do that. It was 39 feet. It's now 35. I will push it back 4 feet. And you know what? I can push it back away from Creston Road and still leave the longer distance from the side property line, I believe. So that gives us the best of both worlds.
Perfect. So I'd be comfortable with you working with staff on that if my fellow commissioners would be.
I'm on board. Smart.
This is Ty. I'm on board with that, and I'm on board with what Katie referred to for the landscape. If that needs to come back, we'll see it. But I think you get the gist of what we were shooting for there, from the street.
I think so, yeah.
So this is Joel. I feel with what we proposed, this project is in substantial conformance with what was approved.
Sounds good. We will let them know in the minutes that staff's going to review the placement of the building when it comes in for construction drawings. We'll also take a look at the landscaping plans. If there's any questions on either of those, we'll bring those, we can run those back by the DRC. But with Warren Hamrick involved with this conversation, he understands what some of the concerns the DRC have, and it sounds like something we can work with him between staff and Warren Hamrick on. All right, is there any other?
Joel, that sounds good to me.
Go ahead, Joel.
No, I just said that sounds good to me.
I'm fine with that, Darren.
And I am as well.
All right, well, thanks, everybody. And we'll talk to you next week's DRC.
Okay, thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Good. Bye all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.